Welcome to Stoic Mindset. I'm glad you're here because today's conversation might just change the way you see yourself and how others see you. Here's the thing, truly intelligent men, they've got a secret. It's not about having all the answers or knowing the capital of every country. Their real power is in knowing when to keep their mouths shut. Sometimes what you don't say says more about you than any clever quote ever could. I've spent years studying people both through the lens of ancient Stoic wisdom and by sipping too many coffees while watching human nature unfold in real time. And let me tell you, the wisest men I've known have something in common. They don't waste words, they don't rush to fill silence, and they never say things that chip away at their credibility. So today we're diving into 7 things intelligent men never say. Not because they're flawless, but because they've learned sometimes the hard way that these phrases lead nowhere good. Stick around, hit that subscribe button, and let's get wiser together. Number 1. I already know that. There's a phrase that slips out more often than we'd like to admit. I already know that. It sounds harmless, even confident, but what it really reveals is something far less flattering: a closed mind. And an intelligent man knows better. He knows that the moment we convince ourselves there's nothing more to learn, we've slammed the door on growth. I learned this the hard way. Years ago, I was working with a mentor, a man who carried himself with the quiet certainty of someone who had lived through enough battles to speak sparingly. We were reviewing a process I had done 100 times before. He began explaining something about it, and without thinking I cut him off with, "Yeah, I know that already." He gave me a look, calm but heavy, and moved on. Later that evening I realized what I had done. Not just interrupted him, but robbed myself of the chance to hear what he saw that I didn't. His years of experience had taught him things that didn't come printed in manuals or outlined in training videos. Things I hadn't lived long enough to understand. When we say I already know that, what we're really saying is, I have nothing left to learn. That's not intelligence. That's arrogance dressed in the costume of competence. And Stoic philosophy cuts right through that illusion. Marcus Aurelius warned us plainly, you cannot learn anything when you think you already know everything. What he meant was that the ego, our need to seem knowledgeable to protect the image we've built, becomes the very thing that blocks our growth. It convinces us we're standing on solid ground when we're really balancing on pride. Intelligent men understand that knowledge is not a trophy you win and place on a shelf. It's a river, always moving, always changing. You step in the same place twice and the water is different each time. I once watched a seasoned carpenter listen patiently to an apprentice explaining a technique he had likely mastered decades before. He nodded, asked questions, even thanked him for sharing. Later I asked him why he didn't just tell the kid he knew all that already. He smiled and said, because sometimes you learn more by listening to the way someone else sees it. That's wisdom, and it's a kind of intelligence that doesn't need to broadcast itself. So if you catch yourself thinking, I've heard this before, take a breath, listen anyway. Not because you need to humor someone, but because you might catch something new. A detail, a shift in perspective, a nuance that deepens your understanding. And even if you don't, you practice humility, you show respect, and over time, that makes you someone worth listening to. In Stoicism, we call that mastery of the self, the ability to set aside pride in favor of clarity, the strength to be a student of life always. And in the end, that's the kind of intelligence that outlasts all the rest. Number 2, that's impossible. Several years ago, I worked alongside a man named Robert. He was sharp, experienced, the kind of leader who seemed to carry the weight of the entire company on his shoulders without ever showing strain. But there was one phrase he used often, almost like a reflex. That's impossible. Any time a new idea surfaced, whether it was a proposal to enter a different market streamline, an outdated system, or even approach a difficult client, he dismissed it with those two words. At first it sounded practical, responsible even. After all, who has time to waste chasing pipe dreams? But over time something became painfully clear. Every time he said that's impossible, it wasn't the situation he was describing, it was himself, his own limits, his own fear. The Stoics understood this kind of thinking well. Seneca wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and that's exactly what Robert was doing. He wasn't analyzing a situation objectively. He was projecting his own fear of failure onto it. Fear of the unknown, fear of being wrong, fear of trying and coming up short. It's a quiet fear, the kind that doesn't look like fear at all. It wears the mask of logic, caution, practicality. But underneath it is the very thing that keeps us small. The belief that if we can't see the entire path, we shouldn't take the first step. Stoic philosophy cuts through this self-imposed paralysis by reminding us that the obstacle isn't the problem. It's our perception of the obstacle that defeats us. I've seen this firsthand. There was a project I was once part of years after working with Robert. The budget was tight, the timeline shorter than seemed reasonable, and the team inexperienced. Every logical bone in my body told me it couldn't be done, but instead of saying that's impossible, I tried something different. I asked myself, what can I control today? What's the next small step I can take? That project turned out to be one of the most successful I've ever worked on, not because we performed miracles, but because we refused to be paralyzed by the scope of the challenge. We stayed focused on the next step, then the next. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And that became the difference. When a man says that's impossible, he is declaring defeat before the fight begins. Intelligent men know that what often feels impossible is just unfamiliar. It's not a wall. It's a challenge to step forward. They understand that strength is not built by winning every battle, but by showing up again and again, especially when the odds seem stacked. That's the essence of Stoic courage, not reckless optimism, but disciplined persistence. In life, we are often asked to do difficult things, and the moment we label them impossible, we close the door on ourselves. But the man who learns to take the next step, no matter how small, opens doors no one else even sees. That's not just intelligence, that's wisdom forged in effort. Number 3. That's not my fault. Here's a phrase that might sound harmless on the surface. In fact, some guys even think it makes them look strong or alpha when they say it. But the truth. When an intelligent man says, "That's not my fault," what he's really doing is broadcasting weakness. Think about it. What does that phrase really mean? It means, I'm not responsible. It means, this situation, this outcome is outside my control. And here's where the problem starts. As men, and especially as Stoic men, what do we teach ourselves? We teach ourselves that we take full responsibility, not because everything is literally our fault, but because the way we respond to life, that part is always ours to own. There's a difference here, and it matters. Because when you say, "That's not my fault," you're stepping away from ownership. You're saying, "This happened to me not because of me." But an intelligent man knows, even if the event wasn't caused by you, how you respond is always on you. That's true responsibility. That's real power. Let me give you a real-world example. I remember coaching a guy, smart, successful, early 30s. His long-term girlfriend broke things off unexpectedly. His first words, "It's not my fault." She was going through stuff. She had issues. On the surface, fair point. But underneath, total lack of ownership. Because instead of asking, "What was my role here? Did I show up the way I wanted to? What could I have done differently regardless of her choices?" he defaulted to blame, and that kept him stuck. Blame locks you in the past. Responsibility moves you forward. And here's what makes this even more dangerous in relationships. When a man says, "That's not my fault," especially to a woman, what he's really signaling is that he lacks control, that he's reactive, that he's at the mercy of external events. And you know what's deeply unattractive? A man who's constantly shifting blame. Because women, especially intelligent, emotionally attuned women, can spot this instantly. It screams, "I can't handle the heat." Now compare that to the man who calmly owns the outcome. "This didn't go how I wanted, but I take full responsibility for how I showed up." That's strength, that's maturity, and that's attractive because it shows leadership, not victimhood. Here's where Stoicism comes in. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you say, "That's not my fault," you give away that power. But when you say, "This is mine to handle, my response defines me," that's when you reclaim it. And that's what intelligent men do. They reclaim. They step into ownership. They choose power over passivity. Now, does this mean you beat yourself up for everything that happens? Of course not. Stoicism is about balance, taking ownership without unnecessary guilt. It's about recognizing, I'm not in control of everything, but I'm always in control of myself. And when you live from that place, you stop needing to say, "That's not my fault," because you know in your core that what matters is how you carry yourself moving forward. That's the mindset of a man who commands respect. And trust me, in life, in relationships, in business, that mindset makes all the difference. Now let me ask you, have you ever caught yourself saying, "That's not my fault," or heard it from someone else? How did it affect the way you viewed the situation or the person? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear what resonated with you on this one. Number 4, I don't need any help. Let's talk about a sentence that sounds like strength, but usually hides weakness. I don't need any help. How many times have you heard that from a man, or even caught yourself thinking it? On the surface, it sounds independent, like you're standing tall, like you can handle whatever life throws at you. But here's the reality. An intelligent man knows that this sentence is a red flag. It signals pride, not power. And pride is one of the greatest barriers to growth. Think about it. Every successful person in any field, business, relationships, fitness, life, got there because they were willing to learn, to be coached, to accept guidance. Seneca wrote, "No man was ever wise by chance." Wisdom is earned, and part of earning it is admitting, "I don't know everything," and that's okay. When you say, "I don't need any help," you close the door to that wisdom. You isolate yourself, and isolation weakens men. I saw this happen to a close friend of mine. He had just gone through a rough breakup. He was struggling, couldn't focus at work, felt lost socially. I asked him if he wanted to talk, maybe get some perspective from a coach, or even from the men in our group. His response, "No, man, I'm good. I don't need any help." Fast forward 6 months, nothing had improved. Why? Because his pride kept him stuck. He wasn't good. He wasn't handling it. He was suffering alone while the men around him were growing. Now here's what an intelligent Stoic man understands. You don't lose strength by asking for help. You gain it. Because the moment you admit, "There's something here I can learn, someone here I can lean on," you open yourself up to new insight, new strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. And sometimes choosing to ask for help is exactly how you exercise that power. Because asking for help is a choice. It's not forced. It's not desperate. It's intentional. A man who can say, "I choose to learn. I choose to grow." That man is truly strong because his ego doesn't run him. And you'll see this play out in relationships too. A man who insists, "I don't need help" in his relationship, who won't listen, won't seek advice, won't take feedback. What happens? He keeps repeating the same patterns. He pushes people away. Because no one, no woman, no friend, no partner wants to deal with a man who can't grow. But the man who's humble enough to say, "I'm working on this, I'm open to new ways of seeing things," that man becomes magnetic. Because that's leadership, that's strength. Not "I've got it all figured out, but I'm always working on becoming better." And here's one more thing. When you live this way, when you become a man who welcomes wisdom, who seeks help when it serves your growth, you inspire other men to do the same. And that's how real brotherhood forms. That's how strong communities are built. Because no one rises alone. As Epictetus said, we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids. You don't need help because you're weak. You seek help because you're smart, because you value wisdom over pride. And that's the mindset that takes a man from stuck to unstoppable. So if you're the kind of man who chooses growth over ego, drop this in the comments. I rise because I learn. Say it, own it. Let the world know where you stand. Number 5. I'm too old for that. This is one of those sentences that sounds logical but secretly kills a man's potential. I'm too old for that. You've heard it. Maybe you've even said it yourself. At first glance, it seems like common sense. You've passed a certain age. You've had some life experience. Certain things just don't fit anymore. Right, wrong. Because what's really happening when a man says this is simple, he's making an excuse. Not based on fact, based on fear. Fear of failing, fear of embarrassment, fear of looking foolish for starting over. And that's exactly why intelligent men who follow Stoic principles, refuse to use this phrase. Here's a story. One of my old clients, Brian, came to me at 47. His marriage had ended. His career was in a rut. He wanted change, but he was paralyzed. When I asked what was stopping him, he said, "I'm too old to start dating again, too old to change careers now." I asked him, "Who told you that?" He paused. And the truth hit him. No one had told him that. He had told himself. That's the danger. When you repeat, "I'm too old for that," you're building a prison in your own mind. Because reality age is just a number. Mindset is what matters. And Stoic philosophy backs this completely. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." In other words, life is short. Time is precious. Why would you waste any of it believing you're too old to live fully? Look around, you'll see men in their 40s, 50s, 60s learning new skills, launching businesses, building great relationships and thriving. Why? Because they stopped lying to themselves. They stopped using age as an excuse. Now, why do so many men fall into this trap? Part of it is ego. We hate being beginners again. It's uncomfortable to start something new when you're used to feeling competent. But here's the hard truth. If you avoid discomfort, you avoid growth. And if you avoid growth, you slowly die inside. No woman is drawn to a man who's given up on himself. No life gets richer from a man who won't try new things. But the man who says, "I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm alive," at any age, that man is magnetic. Women notice, other men respect it. Because that's real strength, the courage to evolve. Let's take another example, fitness. How often do you hear this? "I'm too old for the gym." Nonsense. I know men in their 50s and 60s in better shape than most guys in their 20s because they committed. Their bodies responded. And even more, their mindset transformed. Because the body follows the mind. And a mind that says "I'm too old" is already defeated. Now, in relationships, this phrase is fatal. How many men after a divorce say, "I'm too old to find love again"? Another lie. Emotional connection has no age limit. Presence, wisdom, experience, these are attractive traits that grow with age if you cultivate them. Women feel that, because attraction is about energy, not the date on your driver's license. And here's the key Stoic lesson. It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live. Marcus Aurelius. So ask yourself, am I living or am I hiding behind age? Because life isn't waiting. And the men who rise, who stay alive, are those who refuse to close the door. Not when they're 30, not at 50, not ever. So here's your challenge. If you refuse to let age define you, if you're committed to becoming stronger every year, drop this in the comments. I evolve always. Say it, live it, show the world who you are. Number 6, I'll do it later. Now here's a phrase that kills more dreams than failure ever could. I'll do it later. It sounds harmless, feels casual, no big deal, right? But let me tell you, an intelligent man knows this sentence is dangerous. Because later is where good intentions go to die. And every time you say it, you're building a habit of inaction. It's one thing to say, "I'll schedule it for next week." That's deliberate. But when you casually throw out, "I'll do it later," with no plan, no deadline, you're not pushing it forward, you're burying it. And the problem is, most men don't even realize they're doing it. They tell themselves, "I'm just waiting for the right time. I'm too busy today. I'll get to it when things calm down." But here's the truth. Life rarely calms down. There's never a perfect time. And an intelligent man knows if something matters, it happens now. Not perfectly, not with every box checked, but action beats intention every time. Let me give you a simple example. I once worked with a guy, sharp, talented, who wanted to write a book. He'd been talking about it for years. When I asked how it was going, he always said the same thing: "I'll do it later." When work slows down, when life isn't so hectic, you already know what happened or didn't happen. Years went by, no book, no progress. Because later never came. Now here's where Stoic philosophy hits hard. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." In other words, you don't have unlimited tomorrows. And the man who understands this, who really gets it, stops putting off what matters. He takes action today, because he knows regret weighs more than failure. And nothing feels worse than realizing you ran out of time because you kept saying later. Now, let's bring this into relationships. How many men lose great opportunities with women, with friendships, with family, because they kept putting off the small actions that matter? I'll reach out later. I'll apologize later. I'll plan something later. And then what? The moment passes. The connection fades. And they wonder why their relationships feel empty. Here's the thing, women notice this too. A man who says later too often starts to look unreliable, passive, unmotivated, and that kills attraction. Because women and life are drawn to men who move, men who take action, men who understand that today is the only guarantee. Here's a simple Stoic mindset shift. If it matters, I move on it today, even if it's one small step, one call, one message, one page written. Because momentum builds power, and power builds confidence. That's the kind of man women notice. That's the kind of man other men respect. So here's your challenge. Next time you catch yourself saying, "I'll do it later," stop, ask. If this matters, why not now? And if you act even in a small way, you'll start to build a habit of action. One that transforms your life and your relationships. So, if you're committed to breaking the later habit, to becoming a man of decisive action, drop this in the comments. I move now. Let the world know where you stand. Number 7. "That's just how I am." This one, I hear it all the time, "That's just how I am." It's a sentence that sounds like self-acceptance, but in reality, it's usually a shield, a defense. And here's why an intelligent man, a Stoic man, never leans on this phrase. Because saying, "That's just how I am," shuts the door to growth. It turns a passing weakness into a permanent identity. Let's break this down. We all have habits, flaws, rough edges. That's part of being human. But when you say, "That's just how I am," what you're really saying is, "I don't want to change. I won't take responsibility for this." And over time, that mindset eats away at your relationships, your career, your potential. Here's a story. One of my clients, Mark, great guy, super smart, but he struggled with communication. In arguments he'd shut down, stay silent, get defensive. And every time his girlfriend called him on it, he'd say, "That's just how I am. I'm not good at talking about feelings." At first she tolerated it, but over time it wore her down. Because what she heard wasn't, "I'm working on this," it was, "I refuse to grow," and that kills connection. Now let's tie this to Stoic thinking. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, stop defending old patterns, start becoming better. That's the Stoic path. It's not about perfection. It's about constant evolution. When you say, "That's just how I am," you cut yourself off from that path. You give away your power. Because here's the truth. How you are today is not who you have to be tomorrow. And that choice, it's always yours. I've seen men use this phrase in every area of life. "I'm just not good with money. I'm just bad at relationships. I'm just not the gym type." And every time, it's not a fact. It's a story, a limiting belief. And the longer you tell that story, the more it becomes reality. But the moment you flip the script, the moment you say, "This is an area I'm working on," that's when growth begins. Women notice this too. A man who defends his flaws comes off insecure, stagnant. But a man who owns his flaws and works to improve, that's attractive. That's leadership, because it takes courage to change. And courage always draws respect. So here's the mindset. That's how I've been, not who I must be. That's what an intelligent man lives by. Because every day is a new chance to evolve, to sharpen your mind, strengthen your body, deepen your relationships. And the man who embraces that, he stays vibrant, magnetic, alive. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, "That's just how I am," stop. Ask, "Is this who I choose to be?" And if not, change it. Because the power is yours. And if you're committed to becoming better every day, drop this in the comments. I choose growth. Simple, strong. That's the way forward. Number 8, I'm not good enough for her. Now this is one of the most destructive sentences a man can ever say to himself. I'm not good enough for her. And what's dangerous is it often doesn't get said out loud. It sits there quietly in the back of the mind. A subtle belief, a constant background voice. But trust me, it leaks out in your tone, your body language, your actions. And women, they pick up on it instantly, because deep down no woman wants to be with a man who sees himself as less. It kills attraction, because attraction, true attraction, is built on respect. And if you don't respect yourself, no one else will. Now here's where an intelligent man sees the trap. Saying I'm not good enough for her isn't humility. It's a form of self-sabotage. A story you tell yourself that becomes reality. Because the more you believe it, the more you act in ways that prove it true. You stop leading. You stop setting standards. You tolerate disrespect. You act needy. And little by little you push her away, all because of a false belief. Let me tell you about a guy I coached. We'll call him Eric. Eric met an amazing woman. Smart, successful, beautiful. He was thrilled at first. But then the voice crept in. She's out of my league. She could do better. I'm not good enough for her. And without even realizing it, he started changing. He stopped challenging her, started over-pleasing, avoided tough conversations, all because he didn't feel worthy. And guess what? She lost respect. Not because he wasn't good enough, but because he started acting like he wasn't. That's the real danger of this mindset. Now here's the Stoic truth. No person can define your worth, only you can. Epictetus wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In other words, it's not who she is, it's how you show up. If you believe you're not good enough, you'll act that way. If you know your value, you'll embody it. And here's the key. Being good enough isn't about external things, money, looks, status. It's about your character, your integrity, your purpose, your willingness to grow. That's what makes a man truly magnetic. I've seen men with modest looks, average incomes, but who own their presence date incredible women. Because confidence isn't about perfection, it's about ownership. Owning who you are, owning your journey, owning your value with no apology. And when a woman feels that, respect follows, attraction deepens. So here's the mindset shift. She is who she is, I am who I am, and I choose to show up as my best for me. That's what Stoic intelligence looks like. Not chasing, not shrinking, but standing tall regardless of outcome. And trust me, the man who lives this way, he either attracts the right woman or he walks away with his power intact. Either way, he wins. So here's what I want to know. If you refuse to buy into the lie of not good enough, if you're committed to owning your value, drop this in the comments. I know my worth. Say it, live it, lead with it. Number 9, I don't care what she thinks. Now here's a phrase that sounds confident on the surface, but often hides deep insecurity. I don't care what she thinks. You hear guys say this after rejection, after being criticized, after losing a woman's attention. And sure, sometimes it's true, but more often it's a shield, a defense, because real confidence doesn't need to announce itself. An intelligent man knows if you truly don't care. You're calm, quiet. You don't need to say it. But when a man says, I don't care what she thinks loudly to his friends, to himself, what's really going on? He's hurt. He's disappointed. And instead of processing those emotions, he masks them with false bravado. But here's the problem: that mindset keeps him stuck, because it's reactive, driven by ego. And when you live reactively, especially in relationships, you lose your frame. Let me give you an example. I knew a guy, let's call him Dave. Dave got dumped hard. He didn't see it coming. And right after, he told everyone, whatever, I don't care what she thinks, I'm better off. But here's what really happened. He obsessed over her social media. He kept asking friends about her. He replayed every conversation in his head. Why? Because he did care. A lot. But instead of owning that, he tried to fake indifference. And in doing so, he blocked himself from growing, from processing, from learning the lessons he needed to move forward. That's why intelligent men, Stoic men, approach this differently. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. And part of that power is honesty. Being honest about what you feel, not to the world, to yourself. Because if you deny your emotions, they control you from the shadows. But when you own them, you control them. And that's true strength. Here's what a Stoic man says instead: I notice my reaction, I accept it, and I choose my response. That's the difference. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about caring in the right way. Not needing approval, not chasing validation, but also not lying to yourself. Because when you're honest, when you process, reflect, and grow, you become unshakable. That's what women respect. That's what other men respect. Not fake toughness, but genuine centeredness. Here's another layer. When a man says, I don't care what she thinks all the time, it actually shows he does care. Because the man who truly doesn't care is too focused on living his purpose to even mention it. He's building, growing, living fully. He's not spending time trying to convince anyone, including himself. That's the kind of man who naturally draws respect and attraction, because his actions speak. So here's the mindset: I care about my standards, my purpose, my growth. What others think, that's their business. I stay in my lane. Simple, clean, no ego, and far more powerful than trying to project false indifference. So, next time you catch yourself thinking, I don't care what she thinks, ask, am I running from something or standing in my truth? Because the man who stands in truth always wins in the long game. And if you're committed to being that kind of man, drop this in the comments: I own my path. Say it, mean it, live it. Number 10, women only like bad guys. Alright, this one I hear all the time. Women only like bad guys. And here's the thing, it sounds like a statement about women, but really it's a belief that holds men back. Because when a man says this, he's giving away his power. He's saying, no matter what I do, I can't win, because women just prefer bad guys. And that mindset, it leads to bitterness, resentment, and worse, inaction. Let's break this down. Where does this belief come from? Usually from one of two places. 1. Watching women chase guys who treat them badly. 2. Personal experience with rejection while trying to be the nice guy. And in both cases, it creates the illusion that being kind, respectful, or well-meaning isn't attractive. But here's the truth. It's not about bad versus good. It's about strength versus weakness. Most so-called bad guys project strength, confidence, boldness, unapologetic presence. That's what draws women in, not the cruelty or arrogance. Meanwhile, many nice guys project weakness, timidity, people-pleasing, lack of boundaries. And that's what repels women, not the kindness itself. Because here's what intelligent men understand. Women don't want bad, they want strong. A man with values, standards, backbone. A man who leads, not a man who submits. And Stoic philosophy backs this up completely. Marcus Aurelius wrote, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. That's the key. Be a good man with strength. Not a weak man trying to earn approval. Not a bitter man blaming others. A good man centered, grounded, unshakable. Here's a story I worked with a guy, we'll call him Dan. Dan was classic nice guy, always polite, always accommodating. But deep down, he lacked confidence. He avoided conflict. Had no clear purpose. And guess what? Women weren't drawn to that, not because he was good, but because he was soft. After some serious mindset work, building self-respect, setting boundaries, pursuing his purpose, everything changed. He didn't become a bad guy, he became a stronger man, and women noticed. Because here's the simple truth, masculine energy is attractive when it's strong and grounded, not weak, not bitter, not blaming. So when a man says women only like bad guys, what he's really doing is excusing himself from growth. He's saying, it's not me, it's them. And that belief keeps him stuck. But an intelligent man flips that. He asks, how can I become the man I respect, the man women are naturally drawn to? And he builds that day by day, through action, purpose, discipline. That's what creates true attraction. Not pretending to be a bad guy, not becoming cold or bitter, but standing in your values with unwavering strength. And here's the beauty: when you live this way, you attract women who respect you, who value your presence, not because you're playing games, but because you're real. So the next time you hear women only like bad guys, remember, it's not about bad. It's about being a strong, purposeful, grounded man. That's what matters. And if you're committed to becoming that kind of man, drop this in the comments. I lead with strength. Say it. Live it. That's how you win. And there you have it, brother. These are the phrases that quietly shape your mindset and in turn shape your life. An intelligent man knows words matter, beliefs matter, and how you choose to show up every single day. That's what defines you. So, if you found value here today, if this kind of Stoic mindset is what you want to keep building, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. And if you want to take it deeper, to join a community of men who live this, who challenge each other, who grow stronger together, check out the members group. You'll find brothers on the same path, and you'll never have to walk this road alone. Thanks for watching today, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. Stay sharp.